In the next 15 minutes, you'll learn how to automatically generate leads from LinkedIn, find their verified email addresses, and organize everything into a database that's ready for your outreach campaigns. So today I'm going to show you the exact system I use to generate thousands of qualified leads every month using a waterfall enrichment process. We'll be using n8n and Airtable. I will show you two different workflows, a simple one to enrich between 50 to 200 leads, and another one a little bit more complex to enrich thousands of leads all in one go. So let's dive in. First, the workflow so that you can see it working, and then I'll explain how this is built. So now we have the person's first name, last name, LinkedIn URL, and their email addresses. Here we have an email status set as extrapolated. That means we'll need to go through the waterfall enrichment process to try with two different APIs. We'll be using Drop Contact and Prospeo to see if we can find this person's email address. If we don't find it with these three API calls, we'll assume that this lead can't be found. First of all, we are scraping leads using an API actor. This API actor is called LinkedIn Profile Search Scraper No Cookies Find All People. I'm going to show you how to use the API actor inside n8n. First, you will need an HTTP node. So you click this plus button and select HTTP. Next, you'll select post as a method. And then we are going to get the URL, the credentials, and the JSON body from the API actor. So we need to go back to API. We'll need to create a manual search. And then once we've selected all the parameters, we'll click on JSON, and that's going to be our payload. So we'll just need to copy this and paste it. Obviously, you don't need to do that each time. If you already know what you want, you can adjust and modify the JSON directly in n8n. Now you'll need to get the API endpoint. So you'll click on API endpoint. And for this one, we are going to use run actor synchronously and get dataset items. We'll copy this. We'll go back to n8n, open up the HTTP node again, and paste the URL. As you will see, mine is ending by a question mark. Yours will be ending by a token. So you'll want to copy this part here and just leave it with the question mark. Next, you need to select generic credential type, query all, and here that's going to be empty, so you will create a new credential. You will paste the API token, and you will remove this equal sign and save. Make sure you name it properly. So each time you need to use API and this specific API key, you can use the exact same credentials. And that's basically it in regards to making a query to scrape leads on LinkedIn. Here I've set the timeout to such 1000 milliseconds. This is usually enough for up to 200 leads. If you need to scrape more than that, you will need to use the second method, which I'm going to show you a little bit later on in this video. Next, we are going to save this data inside Airtable. So I prefer to use Airtable than Google Sheet because of the rate limit. So here I'm going to show you exactly how this is built. You will see that this is not very complicated, and you can do it exactly the same way in Google Sheet if you prefer. This database is very simple. We have lead ID. This is a formula that's record_ID and then double parentheses. So this is automated. Then we have first name, last name, LinkedIn URL, email, personal email, even though I don't use that, email status, LinkedIn summary, title, organization's name, and company's website. And that's pretty much all we need in order to find email addresses. So as a next step, we'll want to make sure that the data is being passed properly. So we'll be matching everything based on the LinkedIn URL. So we'll pass the LinkedIn URL, first name, last name, LinkedIn summary, title, and organization's name. As you can see at this stage, we don't have the email address yet. This will be done in the next step. So now we are using the exact same data and we are making a call to Apollo's API. Now we are going to make sure that Apollo HTTP request is set properly. So first we'll check the credentials. So we'll always use generic credential type. And here we are going to use header auth and not query auth. And again, we are going to create a new set of credentials. You'll need to pay attention to the name here. For AP5, we've used token. Here we use x-api-kit. But you will see that when you're using different software, this changes often. Like Drop Contact, for instance, this is x-access-token. And you can see that this is capital. And this is again different if you are using Prospero. This changes all the time. So you need to make sure you check what's in the header. For instance, in Prospero, this is x-key. So always make sure that you adjust this parameter. Next, we are going to set the query parameters. So query parameter is whatever is appended to the URL. So here we are not going to review personal emails because we don't use them. We are not going to reveal phone number just for the sake of this video, but sometimes we do. We are going to send headers. So the headers are very important, otherwise it doesn't work. So you need to make sure that this is exactly as specified within the API documentation. And next we are going to send JSON body. So we'll be using Shield this time because there is no string embedded. So it's very easy. We'll pass the first name, last name, organization name. Once the API call has been made, you will receive an answer. So this is going to give you all this information for each lead. Obviously, we don't need everything. We only need the email status, and we'll also update the LinkedIn URL. Team summary, if they have, we'll update the title, the organization name, and the company's website. And that's pretty much all we need. So we are updating that inside the Airtable database. So we use the update operation, and we update each lead based on the raw ID. The raw ID is what we've created here using this formula. So it's record underscore ID and then double parentheses. So that's very straightforward. Now as the next step, we'll just check if the email status is verified or not. If this is not verified, then we are going to start the waterfall enrichment process. You'll see that inside our database here, we have extrapolated or we have not found. And these are the ones that are going to go through the waterfall enrichment process. So we are going to prepare the data for Drop Contact. Drop Contact actually has a very interesting API. So here I'll show you the post request. And here, as you can see, you can use all those parameters in order to find the lead. So we usually use first name, last name, or full name, and then company's name or company's website. But we can also use LinkedIn URL and so on and so forth. So we are just creating a bit of code to create the payload for us. So this is going to check which kind of data is available for a given lead and create the payload just like this one. So you see just in this video, we only have 5 leads and only one is extrapolated. So we get the first name, last name, Airtable ID, email, title, LinkedIn URL, and company. And this is what's going to be used inside Drop Contact in order to see if that lead has a non-email address or not. Here we are basically passing the whole of what's coming out from the code node. We just make sure that this is stringified so that we don't have any spaces or anything weird. And here, as you can see, we pass the first name, last name, Airtable ID, etc., etc. And all we have here is the whole payload. So if we had 5, 10, 20 leads within that, this wouldn't change. We keep JSON.stringify and then JSON. So next, we need to wait until this query is being processed and then get the data from this query. So here you need to set the amount of waiting time according to the amount of leads that you're trying to extract. So we just need to copy this URL. Also make sure that we are using the right authentication process. So you can use exactly the same credentials as you created before. We'll send headers. So this is just going to be accept and then application/JSON. And that's basically it. We just set a timeout, 15,000 milliseconds. And here we are going to receive basically a list of leads. If the email is being found, great. If the email is not there, it means that drop contact didn't find it, despite having its own waterfall process. So we'll format the result. So just to analyze and see if we have an email address and what's the email address status. In this case, this is going to be not found. So we are going to use a switch node. So this switch node is basically a conditional logic. So that if the email status equals not found, then it's going to go to the need Prospero branch as email. So the email has been found, then we update it inside Airtable. So next we are going to build a request for Prospero. This is not the same working principle as drop contact. So basically, we only use a post request and then we wait for the data to be ready, and we process one lead at a time. So this is more straightforward than drop contact, but this is a little bit heavier if you are processing a lot of leads. In this case, you will need to make sure that you add an option and you add a batching option, and then here set the number of items to be processed at a time. We are going to use exactly what we've used previously. So the first name, last name, and company name. And if the email is being found, we get the actual email and the status. If the email isn't found, we get a message like this one. So this is an error, which we will log. And at this point, we will assume that we can't find the email address for this lead. So now that's a very straightforward process. This is designed to process like anywhere between 20 to 200 leads at a time, but this is not designed to process thousands of leads. Using this API actor, we can get 50,000 results at a time, basically have several bottlenecks. Now I'm going to show you the right way to do it if you want to scrape several thousands of leads at the time and reach their email addresses too. So we are going to use 3 different workflows. First one is very simple. We'll initiate the search and we are going to use the exact same scraper. Then we are going to create another workflow, which is going to begin with a webhook, which is going to be used inside our API actor as an integration. And next, we'll be using basically a waterfall system using hook as well and the script inside our Airtable database. So the first step is to create the scraper. So this is exactly the same as what we've done previously, but instead to get the synchronous data. So instead to use this endpoint here, run actor synchronously and get dataset items, we use this one. We use run actor. And again, we are going to separate the token and the API key from this actual URL and end this URL with the question mark. And next, we are going to retrieve the data coming from this actor. So it might sound a little bit complicated, but this is very straightforward. So first, we build the scraper. So exactly that, we just copy and paste. Make sure we have query auth set as authentication type, and then query auth set, so the token added and the value of our API key. The next step, we'll create a new workflow, which is going to be designed to get leads and update them inside our Airtable database. So this one is going to be a post request, and that's going to be the production URL. And we are going to copy this URL and go inside our actor and go to integration. Here we add an integration that's going to be the webhook. HTTP start when run succeeded, and then we'll paste the URL in here and save. So as soon as the data is ready, it's going to ping this URL, and we are going to process the data exactly as we did previously, except that this time we don't have to wait for it to be ready. It's going to send it automatically. So I'm going to show you an execution so that you understand exactly what's going on. So we have this data. So basically we get the dataset ID, and then we are going to create an HTTP request, which is going to be a get method to get the content of this run. The URL to get data from an API actor is always the same. So this is api.api.com/v2/dataset, and then default dataset ID/items, and then question mark. Always set the authentication using headers or query auth. Once we have found those leads, we are going to add them inside the Airtable database using the create or update operation. We are going to pass the LinkedIn URL. We are also going to match the column on this LinkedIn URL. We are going to pass first name, last name, LinkedIn summary, title, and organization's name. And then as the next step, we'll search for their professional email addresses using Apollo's API. So we are going to use the exact same URL as we did previously for Apollo. Make sure that the authentication is set as such. We are going to send query parameters. For this video, I don't use personal emails. I never use personal emails. At some point, we were using personal emails to add people into lookalike audiences, but it didn't work so great. So we are not doing it anymore. Reveal phone number, we are not going to get their phone numbers. We are going to send headers again. So these are just to be copied and pasted from the Apollo API developers documentation. We are going to send body. This body is very simple. This is first name, last name, organization's name. And if the emails are being found, they are going to be returned with their email status. So are they verified, extrapolated, or not found? And then we are going to get their professional email addresses too, which we are going to update inside database. So we are going to use the ID this time to match on column. We are going to use the LinkedIn URL, and we are also going to pass obviously the email. If we've been looking for the personal email, we'll do that here. Email status, LinkedIn summary, title, organization's name, and company's website. Now I'm going to show you the third workflow, which is the waterfall enrichment process. This is using a webhook. So as you will see, this is slightly different. This one is a get method, and this is what we are going to use inside Airtable automation. So you'll want to get the production URL, and then inside Airtable, you need to set the parameters. So this triggers when this record matches condition. So it basically triggers if the email status is not verified and if it is not found. And then we run a very simple script, which is this one here. So you can just pause or copy and paste if you are within the community. We just pass the record ID. And here within n8n, we wait for this data to arrive. So basically the automation is pinging the n8n automation. Then we get this specific record. And then once we have this specific record and all the details like first name, last name, LinkedIn URL, LinkedIn summary, title, and organization's name, we do exactly as we did previously. We prepare the data for drop contact. Then we submit the payload to drop contact. And then we get request ID. Then we have a wait step, which is in this case, as they are processed one by one, is just 10 seconds. Then we get the result from this query. If the data is ready, we just update it inside Airtable. If the data is ready but the email hasn't been found, we send it to Prospeo. If we find it, great. And if we don't, we assume that this lead's email address can't be found. So this is not as straightforward as the first one, but this is the way if you want to process thousands of leads all in one go. If you don't have Airtable subscription, you won't be able to run the script. In this case, you're going to run this on schedule. So that's going to be schedule trigger, and that's going to look for basically all records that aren't matching these conditions. So where the email hasn't been found or when the email status isn't verified. And then you're going to get records individually, and we are going to basically check those email addresses one by one using this loop over item. That's why it's there. It's there. If you don't have the Airtable subscription, you can use a schedule trigger, basically run it every 5 minutes and get the system to check if any record matches the condition set previously or not. And this is going to work exactly the same way. So I hope this video was helpful. If you want the templates, you can head over to the school community. So you'll be provided with the first workflow inside the free community, and you'll be provided with those 3 workflows and the Airtable database in the paid community. Bye-bye.